I need a lawyer. I might need a few lawyers. I have at least 9 possible legal issues in my medical records. 8 are against Kaiser, and 1 is against Big Pharma. I'm going to read this off of my screen because there's a lot of information. I'm not going to be able to remember all of this. So, after my heart was damaged by the seizure medication Keppra, and after what appears to be at least 8 separate instances of malpractice, negligence, and misdiagnosis in my medical records, I got tired of being injured by the medical system. So I requested whatever medical records I could get. I was able to get all of the ones lawyers might like to see. What I found out is such insanity on how taxpayer money is wasted on some of the worst healthcare you could get with Medi-Cal and Kaiser. I will give a short backstory when my seizures got so bad. I had a 5-minute long one right in front of my kids' elementary school when I was dropping them off one morning in 2013. 5 minutes is a long time for a seizure and messed me up for a couple years after that. I was having some minor problems since I was a kid, and they just kept getting worse until I had that 5-minute long seizure. There was a police officer at the school, and he ended up dragging me out of the car. And I was told later by people that witnessed it that popo actually handcuffed me on the ground while I was seizing. I have no memory of that. I remember pulling up to the front of the school and then waking up in the hospital with a nasty headache. I had 2 shoulder surgeries and a neck injury after that police dragged me out of the car. But I don't know what he injured or not back in 2013. So I started on the medical cannabis for seizure control, which helped out a lot until I went vegan. My daughter started veganism first, and then I got sucked into that world of bad ideas. I did a whole research article on my website about the dangers of being a vegan. Spoiler alert, I was deficient in vitamins B6, B12, and DHA. My daughter was also having seizures around age 17 from veganism. Her neurologist called it convulsive syncope, which is just blood pressure dropping and no blood gets to the brain, causing a brief loss of consciousness and convulsions. I was a better vegan at that time. She cheated sometimes by eating sushi and salmon. Me on my plant-based high horse looked down on animal products back then. Stupid, huh? My seizures were getting so bad all throughout 2019 until it sent me back to the hospital. This shows I had an atypical seizure at the hospital lasting a few minutes. I woke up with an oxygen mask on, and I was trying to take it off saying I can't breathe. That's when I found out I stop breathing or don't breathe much when I have seizures. They put me on Keppra and sent me on my way. 3 days went by, then my legs stopped working and I was stuttering. Moving my right arm and leg were both difficult, so I went back to the hospital. They did a brain MRI showing that the radiologist noted that these changes can appear with microvascular injury, chronic migraines, or demyelination. This neurodegeneration and ataxia looks just like a B12 deficiency, but nobody ever tested my vitamin levels, like ever. That ataxia was triggered by chemicals like hairspray, laundry detergent, and most fragrances. This is multi-chemical sensitivity that involves dysfunctional TRPA1 and TRPV1 receptors, which are modulated by DHA. Even over 6 years later, I still get mild ataxia for a couple days with some seasonal viruses. Not bad enough to crawl on the ground, but I do need to hold onto the wall for a little bit so I don't my legs just give out. A DHA deficiency from being vegan is the cause of all of that. And not everyone has the genetics to be a vegan and will not be able to convert plant-based omega-3 into DHA. This will cause neurodegeneration. Men are also more susceptible to vegan-induced damage from DHA deficiency, as they cannot convert DHA as efficiently as women do. I put this research on my website since doctors always blame chemical sensitivity on psychiatric issues, but we all know that they're completely wrong. I was still with Blue Shield Medi-Cal at that time, and I had to wait 9 weeks for a neurology appointment. They did test my phenylalanine levels since I had a problem with that when I was born. It did show a mildly high abnormality. This is too low to be PKU, but it's easily explained by being deficient in vitamin B6. To make an even longer story short, the 2 to 3 month wait list for appointments, and they were unable to find a doctor to address the elevated phenylalanine, I had a short opportunity to switch to Kaiser. This is where I had at least 8 cases of malpractice over the next few years. Just about every visit, there is something documented that is either malpractice, negligent, or misdiagnosed. Let's start off with the worst doctor I ever had in the world, the neurologist. I asked her about my elevated phenylalanine, my brain MRI changes, and seizures. She immediately tried blaming this on something psychiatric, like most doctors do. I played along with it. I had an appointment with both a psychiatrist and a genetic doctor. Let's start off with the psychiatrist. This appointment was very uneventful. The second visit was the last, and she said my symptoms don't fit a diagnosis, and was sent there because my case was too complicated. I asked her, why does vitamin B6 and B12 give me seizures? I tried taking a multivitamin, the whole thing gave me a seizure. I crushed it up and took a tenth of it, like 100 milligrams, that still gave me a seizure. Then I tried B6 and B12 by itself with a few other ones like CoQ10, and both the B6 and B12 both gave me seizures. And that doctor also knew I was a vegan. And you know what she said? Don't take them. And she put them down as a medication allergy. She never tested the vitamin levels. She also told me to do plant-based keto to treat my vegan-induced seizures. I said that eating meat and cheese makes me feel more normal, and I can't go back to plant-based anything. She was disappointed I was eating animal products. She also said the only thing she could do was give me pills to sleep, and I said no more pills. Now this brings us to medical malpractice number 2, the doctor that dealt with genetic disorders. He had no explanation for the elevated phenylalanine, but he did take note that I used to be a vegan and was intolerant of B vitamins. Now a doctor like this should know that B6 is required to break down phenylalanine into tyrosine and neurotransmitters, but not him. He did recheck the phenylalanine levels after I already stopped the veganism, and he said they were normal. Kaiser's lab test just says normal, but I think he said it was in the 50s or 60s, which is about half of what it was when I was a vegan. Now this made my neurologist believe that nothing at all was wrong. She even acknowledged my intolerance to B vitamins, but still, nobody checked the vitamin levels or even thought about nutritional deficiencies from being a vegan. So I tried avoiding all doctors after this, and just kept refilling my seizure medications for a couple years. It was safer to be a DNR and only see a doctor if I was going something extremely worse than dying. This is how bad they are at medical care. This brings us to the summer of 2023, and my heart started acting up, and I felt like a phone was vibrating in my chest that made me jump out of bed. It was only happening when I slept. If I went to the doctor then, my EKG would have probably been normal, and that would have just made them blame it on anxiety. Then they would have never taken me seriously after that. So I waited a little over a year, and I was having 1 second long blackouts a few times per minute. I was sure my EKG would have been abnormal, so I went to the emergency room, and sure enough, my EKG was not normal. They figured out that low phosphate was the problem. I asked why my phosphate was low, and that doctor gave me possible reasons that he found on Google. But he would not run a test to figure out anything. Even the nurse said I had some research to do to find out why my phosphate was low. Like, dude, why couldn't they run a test for that? I don't know. Is this Medi-Cal or is this just Kaiser? I don't get it. Anyway, during my 4-hour-long IV phosphate infusion, I found an article that proved that Keppra can cause low phosphate. No other possibility would fit. So I stopped taking that seizure medication that day, and I was put on phosphate supplements for 2 weeks. This is where I got some kind of muscle damage. My body was so accustomed to low phosphate, it didn't know how to handle normal levels. Those supplements made it extremely hard to breathe, causing seizures and severe muscle weakness that lasted a few hours after each dose. The symptoms got progressively worse over the next 5 days, and I had to stop taking them. This reaction is classic refeeding syndrome. I did get mild symptoms after eating phosphate-rich foods like sardines and cheese. Now that brings us to the next doctor that commits malpractice, the primary care physician. The first visit was on July 26, 2024, and this resulted in nothing but him saying that my respiratory failure from the phosphate supplements was because some people are more sensitive than others. So I waited until the symptoms worsened during the winter, and that's when I found out about how cold weather gives me such severe chest pain and many of these 1 second long blackouts that coincides with a very hard thump in my chest. This also happens with air conditioning and is really severe in refrigerated sections at the grocery store. This made me go back to the doctor on February 24, 2025. This primary care doctor put in my medical records that confirms muscle weakness, breathing difficulty, and low phosphate levels that normalized only after seizure medication discontinued. That looks like even more proof that Big Pharma is responsible for messing up my heart and muscle function. I asked this doctor why my muscles shut down frequently, making it difficult to breathe throughout the day, and why the cold weather or the outside temperature going down a degree per hour or faster, which gives me severe chest pain and frequent 1 second long blackouts coinciding with the PVC, and he said I'm a doctor, not a researcher. He proceeded to order unnecessary tests to give me the illusion of getting medical care, which included 4 cholesterol tests, Hep C, cortisol, and thyroid-stimulating hormone. Cholesterol was a little bit high, and that's typical for being keto, and the cortisol was slightly high, but not enough to mean anything. I only took 3 of those cholesterol tests because I wasn't getting a ride out there just for 1 extra cholesterol test, and that's just stupid. They did do an EKG, which was abnormal and showed the left anterior fascicular block returning that showed resolved in the emergency room the previous year. But it's still there, along with a right bundle branch block, PVCs, and a bifascicular block. This ended up with no treatment options and no tests related to my symptoms. That doctor ordering unnecessary tests was ridiculous and shows the wasteful spending of taxpayer dollars on tests that should have never been ordered. This is Medi-Cal. But having no treatment options reinforced it's better to be a DNR than continue asking those people for help. But I'm going through something a little worse than dying, which made me try one more time with a different primary care doctor. This new doctor ordered a 7-day Zeo patch and found that my PVC burden was at 7.5%. Her protocol for PVCs was a beta blocker. I asked her that I probably shouldn't take that because my heart rate goes down to the low 50s when I sleep. And my symptoms are much worse when my heart rate is going slow, like when I'm sitting and sleeping. She told me it is safe to take it anyway because I am an outpatient, and that beta blockers are only held in the hospital. Considering the bad advice I've gotten so far, and being damaged by Keppra, I couldn't take the chance on those pills. I am really curious to know what an actual cardiologist would say about that. I also asked her why I get such severe chest pain when it's cold. This starts every afternoon when the temperature goes down to about 72. And as long as it cools down a degree per hour or more, I get chest pain and those mini blackouts. Normal people might just feel a little cold breeze in the air, but this messes my heart up now after Big Pharma destroyed it. This makes sleeping at night a complete nightmare. I have to keep my heating pad close to my nose and a space heater pointing towards my face when the outside temperature is in the low 50s. I live in 1990s style insulation that radiates the cold in. Like, this is just stupid. I can't breathe in cold air, so I can't fall asleep until the morning time when the temperature starts going up, which is between 4 and 7 in the morning. Even salty foods and drinking too much water will mess up my heart, but that's a meaningless symptom to Kaiser. All of this from a seizure medication that wrecked me. That doctor did not mention vasodilators at all, but those would induce a seizure on me anyway. She did think I needed a muscle biopsy, which sent me back to the worst doctor in the world again, that same neurologist. I thought since I had actual documented heart problems and low phosphate, she might actually take me seriously. Those PVC-induced blackouts lasting only for a second, according to this doctor, are psychogenic. Yeah, she thinks I'm faking it. I guess I must have faked my EKG results too. She was wrong about the psychosomatic seizures when it was a deficiency in DHA, B6, and B12 from being a vegan. And again, turning a heart problem into something psychological. I seriously cannot believe this is the world we live in. And that doctor should seriously lose her license. I was still keto at this visit, but a couple weeks later I had to start eating carbs again, which worsened my seizure activity. It's much milder than it was, but screen time, like trying to record this right now, is my main seizure trigger. I can usually get about 2 hours in before it messes with my head. And it just starts with a migraine. As I push myself, absent seizures will start, where I'm just staring at the computer and I don't really know what's going on. If that continues, I'll get a partial complex seizure where I start seeing light trails and it gets really hard to breathe. Doctors will probably say, oh, you just have an anxiety. So, this limits me being able to do much of any kind of work. Those doctors know there's enough wrong with me that they will not allow me to drive. Now this is where I need a disability lawyer to find out, do I even qualify for disability through Social Security? Because of how that neurologist documented the seizure problem in the first place, I was denied disability. I had ataxia and was stuttering. I couldn't even do basic math in my head. And they seriously thought I could fulfill the requirements of being a RN. Yeah, this is the world we live in. I can't find my second denial letter, but their website changed, and my old applications were not there anymore. But this time they acknowledged that I had difficulty moving my right arm and right leg, and put down that I should still be able to do part-time mental work from home. And by the way, my right side is working fine right now. I just really need to stop being vegan and eat fish at least once a week. I have permanently lost any chance of getting SSDI because of too much time lapsing at the fault of Kaiser doctors misdiagnosing me. But I could still get the unlivable $1,000 a month with SSI, maybe with a lawyer. But do I even have enough of a medical problem to get that? I see people getting that and they show up on Judge Judy, and I can't even make it through a grocery store trip without chest pain. So I really do need some lawyers to help me with this. For the possibility of suing Big Pharma, messing in my heart and muscles. My medical records show my heart damage was from low phosphate, along with my other symptoms we already went over. But I need to address the health effects of long-term low phosphate to help with possible damages from Big Pharma. No doctor knows anything about having low phosphate for over a year. There are also no documented cases of long-term low phosphate. So I asked Quora and got two very different answers. I dug up some research and found that when phosphate is chronically low, cells adapt by lowering ATP consumption, alters the mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation, and shifts metabolism away from glycolysis. Then, when phosphate suddenly increases again, energy metabolism can change rapidly, which is why refeeding syndrome occurs. But most studies examine acute starvation, not year-long electrolyte disturbance. Further evidence of mitochondrial dysfunction. I get mild improvement with muscle weakness if I eat about a half a cup of beef heart, which is high in taurine. Taurine has been shown to support mitochondrial function and protect against mitochondrial dysfunction in multiple experiment and clinical studies. This observation may be relevant because taurine plays a role in maintaining mitochondrial protein synthesis and protecting mitochondria from oxidative stress. This process is important for normal cellular energy production. Kaiser is no stranger to lawsuits and settlements. Most are not public knowledge due to their arbitration requirements that silence people. But some were just too high profile that Kaiser couldn't hide. Without public knowledge and help, what they did and Big Pharma did to me would go unnoticed. What do you all think? Do I have any possible lawsuits against Big Pharma? If there is a 2-year statute of limitations on this, that will be this year in July. Kaiser's malpractice will probably not amount to anything since it's impossible to sue them. I have tried contacting medical injury lawyers in San Diego, but I have not heard back from them. The only way I thought I could get help from any of this is through social media. So please let me know in the comments below if you have any suggestions, and thank you for watching.